All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for being here today. Super excited for, again, one of my new favorite webinars, our Author Spotlight webinar, where we get to meet some amazing people from around the world and get to hear about some of the amazing things that they are doing in their classrooms. So, before we get too far into that and who our special guest is today, I just want to introduce myself. For those of you that don't know me, my name is John Smith, for real. I am the Teacher Success Manager here at Book Creator. Taught special ed for 12 years. I was a Technology Integration Specialist for 7 years. And now as Book Creator's Teacher Success Manager, lots of webinars, lots of trainings, get to talk to cool people like Britni and all that good stuff. So married, I've got 3 kids, 10, 6, and 3. And as I mentioned, we have a concert going on out in the living room. The Greatest Showman. I hope YouTube doesn't block me for some copyright violations or something because of that. I don't know, but super, super excited. And as we go through the webinar this evening, it's just real laid back, just a conversational kind of webinar. But if you have questions of Britni or myself, please put those into the chat window and we'll be more than happy to answer those questions. So without further ado, I'm super excited to introduce to you Britni Vienna. So Britni, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where do you teach? What's your job title? All that kind of good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I am currently a 2nd grade math and science teacher. We're departmentalized, and I teach a very high EL population. So just kind of give you a little idea here. I'm teach in Illinois and outside of the Chicagoland area. And my school has about 34% of ELs, and the state average is 12%. So really accommodating and being inclusive is a huge part of what I do every day. And Book Creator has definitely given me the platform to showcase my students to their families, to other students, to other teachers. So I'm really excited to join you tonight and talk all about Book Creator and how it's really been impactful for my EL students here in Illinois.
Awesome. Excellent. Very good. And then let's give us one interesting fact about you, Britni. Anything that you just want to bring to the table?
An interesting fact. I come from a family line of teachers. There's probably 11, 12 of us on mom and dad's side combined. My mother's a teacher, and I think she's even tuning in here. And my husband is a teacher. I mean, my aunts, uncles. Yeah, we have a lot of teachers on a non-pandemic year. When we get together for holidays, you would think we're at a faculty meeting or a staff meeting because there's just so much education talk, which I love. Definitely miss that at this time, but definitely love when we get to teacher talk.
That's awesome. My family was a bunch of teachers as well. My mom taught kindergarten, preschool for a little while, and then she went into nonprofit, started working for some other organizations. My dad was a music teacher, and I remember from a very early age, apparently being strapped onto the front of my dad in a little carrier so that he could take me to choir concerts and rehearsals and things like that. So my sister and I are both teachers. My wife's a teacher. So yeah, definitely in the family. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that. So the next thing that I think I'd like to ask, and I'm sure everybody would love to hear, is your Book Creator story. I think everybody has heard my Book Creator story to some degree, and I've been using it for about 8 years now. And it was the only tool that I could find that would get my kids excited about writing, right? And being able to take their work and publishing it online. And I think for me, it was just like a happy accident, flipping through the App Store 8 years ago, and I found something called Book Creator, and I was like, well, that's got to be interesting. Wonder what that's all about. But what is your Book Creator story, Britni? How did you come about Book Creator? What drew you in? That kind of stuff.
Sure, absolutely. I was teaching in Indiana for about 4 years, and then I moved on to Illinois because my husband works in Illinois, and I loved him and still love him, I should say. And when I came to the district that I'm currently in, like I was saying, a very high EL population. So grabbing their attention, motivating, building confidence, and a lot of apps that are currently out there, for me at least in my personal experience, is difficult to grab that attention, kind of like how you were talking about, for all learners and all my students, and really providing that equitable learning opportunity. So I started off in my current district I'm at, as a fourth grade teacher, and there is a lot of reading, writing, and math. I was also departmentalized in math and science. And math for some can be frustrating, especially with the reading and writing. And then when you're adding on top of that low language proficiency levels for English language learners as well. So I remember our curriculum leader that we had presented on Book Creator. And at the time it was a free, I believe, I don't know, how many books is it free?
40.
Yeah, 40 books. So, and I was sharing with you earlier too, that I had like different email addresses because I had so many, about 60 students. And so it was just when she presented on it, the curriculum team leader, it was so fascinating to see all the tools and all the opportunities that kids can engage in between voice, text, video, audio. I mean, it was just endless opportunities. And once I rolled out Book Creator one day, I remember my kiddos were just like, whoa. I mean, I thought I'd have to teach them slowly. Okay, so this is how you make a cover. No, they just went with it. So it was really neat to see these different languages, Polish, Lithuanian, English, Spanish, but they're all engaged in Book Creator, and they're explaining their math thinking, which is so important with Common Core, and especially now trying to communicate effectively, to use their voice or their writing. It just provided different modalities for them to really engage in. So then I moved on to second grade, and it works for the little ones too. I mean, the same goal there definitely has delivered. So yeah, anytime I get a chance to talk about it, it excites me.
That's awesome. And a couple things that you said made me think of something. A lot of times when I do webinars, I get questions from teachers. Well, how do you teach Book Creator to students? And I've said it for years, and I think you just summed it up in a probably a much nicer way than I do. Is that I don't teach Book Creator to kids. I teach Book Creator to teachers, but kids I don't, because they figure it out. Like once you've logged in, they'll click buttons.
They really do figure out quite quickly. I always start the year with letting them play around with it. So I give them almost a rubric as we go along, like find your favorite color. And so they can kind of get used to how to create the pages and the cover and the text, because there's so many components to it that they figure out, but it's nice to kind of let them dive in, play with it, and take ownership. And I had pulled up a YouTube video of somebody teaching Book Creator, which was awesome. But then I just found my students just going on their own, which was also effective. So it's very neat to see how able they are to engage and just dive right in without even thinking about it. So that's been super helpful through a teacher perspective.
And again, it's just one of those tools. It's super easy, super engaging. The kids love it. I actually just got off another webinar, and one of the questions kind of made everybody giggle. But I've heard this multiple times. And the question was, well, what are the chances that kids are going to go home and just start making tons and tons of books inside your library, right? It's one of those things where it's like, that's a great problem to have. Like, I mean, how many times can you say in anything, like, yeah, my kids were so engaged, they ruined my free plan, right? Like, how many times do you say that, right? And I think it has happened more often than not, where kids they get excited about this, and they're like, wow, I can be a published author. I can make really cool, engaging books on things that aren't necessarily like books, like quote unquote books. And they just run with it, and they're just super excited. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you have had, a very similar kind of.
Yes. And the great part of this too is that my district was awesome enough to upgrade us. So I didn't have to have so many emails anymore. And it's definitely worth the subscription upgrade for sure, just because they do go home and they are excited, and they memorize your Book Creator code that you give them in school, and then you start seeing puppy books, and it's like, no. So then you make a library for fun at home to give them that outlet too. But definitely a fun experience.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for talking about that. I love, like I said, I love listening to everybody's story, and everybody's story is a little bit different, but it's kind of neat how it all just kind of wraps right back around
Yeah.
to how easy everything is. And I think for me personally, during this whole pandemic thing, I learned three things. You know, teachers are stressed out for one, like beyond stressed. They just want things to be back to normal. Number two, I think teachers need help. So, you know, we've done tons and tons of webinars, and for those of you that are watching and you're not that familiar with Book Creator just yet, you know, go to app.bookcreator.com, sign up for that free account. And we have lots of great tutorials and videos and things on our YouTube channel. So definitely want to check those out because you'll definitely get a deep understanding of what Book Creator is all about. And you'll understand that, how awesome it is for your kids. But then the third thing I've learned is that easy is going to always win. So when teacher stress is up here and teacher need for help is up here, and you have a tool that's difficult, that's not a good combination. But when it's easy, people are going to like, yep, it's easy. And you'll find that out if you haven't used it yet. So Britni, the reason that we're here today mostly is because we've seen some really cool books that you and your students have created, and I've seen you share a lot of those out on Twitter and social media, which is fantastic. For me, I love that because that's where my kids, they really thrived when they realized that somebody other than their old fuddy-duddy teacher was going to actually see their work. And so the fact that you're sharing that stuff out there is great. I love that. And I'm sure your kids love that too. And they love hearing about the tweets and retweets and things like that. But would you be so kind as to show us some of the awesome books that you have, your kids have created? I'm going to make you the co-host, or actually I'm going to make you a host. So before we end all of this, I'll have to have you change that back. But I'm going to make you the host now so you can share your screen. We'd love to see some of these amazing things that you're making with your students.
And I'm just gonna pull them up for you. Perfect. All right.
And again, in the chat window, if you have any questions for Britni or for myself, let us know, and we'll be happy to answer these questions.
All right, good. Can see?
Yep, got it.
All right, perfect. So just recently we did measurement was our current unit in our second grade classroom. And so we are currently with the pandemic, some students are in person and some students are remote. So Book Creator has definitely done a great job with merging all of our learners and definitely seeing each other's work from remote to in person. So here I have a kiddo showing off this lovely ruler, but our whole topic was measurement. And what I really like to do with Book Creator is after teaching a skill for a couple days, I have them jump into Book Creator and kind of just refresh their memory of what they're learning about. So for this student, we had to talk about tools, and his language proficiency is about at a 2 to 3 within WIDA. So for him, it was nice for him to use the recording tool for just his voice. That was what he was comfortable with. His speaking is pretty well, but his writing is where it's lower on that language proficiency. So it also gave him more confidence to give us a nice little video talking about measurement tools. He decided to put in a spider and measure it. And what I can say is I provide a rubric, or sometimes the students and I make a rubric where it's really simplistic for my students to understand. So we'll talk about what our book should have, because kiddos, especially whether they're 7, 10, 15, they need some sort of direction per se. Too much freedom is almost overload. So as Book Creator does have so many great options, I like providing them, okay, what's our goal here? And I had them measure something, anything they choose, and he chose a spider. So it was pretty creative. And again, with Book Creator, you can go to the Google import and they import their own images. And I really like that.
It's much better than like finding actual spiders, right? Like,
yeah, I'll take that.
This is a poisonous tarantula. Let's measure this.
Again, he's working on his spelling for a second grader. This is pretty great for what we're working on in our skills. So about rulers, and here he did a voice on exactly what he wrote. So he wanted to practice what he wrote and saying it out loud. So even though this is totally all math, it's going to that different disciplines, interdisciplinary with reading and writing. So just because, we focus on math and science and he doesn't leave during the pandemic school year, another teacher comes in and will teach them the reading and writing. Book Creator has definitely fused those two and has been very helpful in building that relationship for sure. And then kind of just going back as well. Okay, if I press play, are you able to?
Yeah.
So what I really like too is captions. So as I'm playing, if you notice, you can turn on the captions, which I kind of just figured out not that long ago. And it's awesome because my students who are practicing their English are able to completely view, okay, what I'm saying is what I'm reading. It's totally helping them what they're speaking, they're listening. And so I really like how our measurement book is definitely coming along here. And this was just one student, but yeah, so this has kind of been our focus currently. And
I want to go back to your caption thing there for a second. I absolutely love captions. And I tease my wife and my kids because, if I'm laying in bed at night or something, I'm watching my iPad or watching a video or something, and somebody says, turn it down, right? Like I always laugh and I'm like, okay, sure. I'll read my show again, right? Like I'll read my show. But all joking aside, I had parents, when I was in the classroom and I would send home books, or homework that said, read with your parents or read a story or something. Parents would actually get mad at me, right? And say things like, look, we can't afford books. I don't have time to read. Stop asking me to do this, that kind of stuff. And I was fascinated by that. I was like, what do you mean? That's crazy. But then I would say to the parents, I'm like, wait a minute, do you have a TV? And they would say, well, yeah. And I'm like, well, okay, do you watch TV? And they're like, yes. I was like, then turn on the captioning while you're watching your show. Because even if you're just, watching a show and that text is just being thrown up there on the screen, you're still being exposed to text. Now, obviously, it's not ideal. We want kids reading books. We want them to understand the language. But it's not a bad option, right? It's not a bad thing to try to get those students, at least, like I said, exposed to more text. But I love what you've got going on here because the other thing with the speech to text is, especially if it's a student who may not be speaking English real well, or like for my son, for example, when he wasn't real easy to understand, like early on in his life. And so when he did speech to text, it would come out like a pile of gobbledygook. And I would say to him, hey, you got to fix it. Like we got to make it so that the device does understand what you're saying. And it actually helped him, like where he was, trying to figure out what was going on. Same thing with my daughter right now. She'd come up, she'd get mad. Like, Siri doesn't understand what I'm saying. Right. And I'm like, well, you gotta, speak a little clearer. You got to make Siri understand what you're saying. So I think there's a lot of things going on in this quote math book that hit so many different areas of communication and speaking and listening and all that stuff. So yeah, these are great.
And what I really like too is he was able, and all my students were able to record their video, and I showed them how to put on the captions afterwards, which was just a click. And for them to kind of watch it back with their own words was a huge learning moment. Definitely a time and opportunity for them to take ownership and responsibility of their learning. So it was really neat. And I have to say, it was able to pick it up through the mask. So that was pretty good with our Chromebooks in our school. He has his mask on, learning English. He's doing a fabulous job. And it was able to pick it up completely. So I was pretty happy
awesome.
with that.
Well, speaking of that, on a side note, to me, that usually ends up being like one of the I don't say like what most difficult things about recording and whether it's Book Creator or any kind of recording is that background noise. And so one of my favorite hacks for that is I found some teachers who they'll take like a cardboard box and then they'll take that squishy styrofoam like egg crate stuff,
Yes.
stick it in the boxes and then you take your device, you put your device in the box and you stick your head in there and you do your recording inside like this, like your own little private like recording studio. And it has some surprising results. Like it's pretty good.
Yes.
Chris, do you provide opportunities for students to view each other's creations? So Brittany, how would you answer that? Do your students do any kind of like peer evaluations or peer reviews of their books?
Yeah, so definitely I have in the past. This school year, it's kind of really just getting things kind of up and going. But what I do like is that right now our books are, on private, some of them, so they're not published to the world. So these kiddos that I am going to share and sharing tonight, they're published authors. However, I tell them they're all published authors. We have an open library where they can see everybody's books, and then they can make comments as well, or voice recordings as well. I haven't implemented that completely this year, just due to kind of the nature of things, but on a more normalized school year, we definitely engage where they would be working together, creating books together. And then I know Book Creator does have the collab where they can share the one book and go back and forth with it. So if I'm at home working on the book, it's kind of like a Google Doc, I would say. If I'm at home working on the book and my partner is in the classroom, or 2 blocks away, we can still contribute to the same book. I've done that before. It just hasn't been up and running with the little ones quite yet, but they're getting started and getting going, which is good. But yes, there's definitely options and opportunities to collaborate.
Yeah, awesome, great. And then there was another one that I love the measurement books. There was another one that you sent me today too that I thought was really the remote learning book.
Yeah.
I would love to have you talk about the remote learning book and why a remote learning book and kind of what happened because of it.
Yeah. So, and you can see this, right? All
Yep.
good?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So back in the spring, when schools were shutting down, kind of just as all teachers and educators and anybody in the school community were, oh no, like now we're going to be learning from home. Google Classroom for our second graders were not up and running at all. And I'm like, okay, think about this. Book Creator. So we used a book creator for every day. For this was day 7 of remote learning. And his assignments all came in through Book Creator, where he showed pictures, left voices. He collected all my feedback into one little area, which was pretty neat. And I mean, he just excelled at this tremendously and put a lot of time and effort, but he enjoyed it. His mom would, I use Class Dojo. His mom would Class Dojo me and be like, oh, he is so engaged. He's excited. He would leave me little messages. And for this school year, I've had a learning book, but I've been doing more so of, because we have the Google Classroom now, but more like family engagement and different types of books, where here, it was my only source. So Google was not an option for me at this time, but Book Creator came through. So I'm super excited about that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think this is another thing. Like if I were to hear, and I don't want to use the word complaint, but if I were to hear something from teachers who are like, well, it's books, right? Like I teach math, I teach PE, I teach art, I teach health. We don't make books, right? We do math and science and we do different things. There's so much that can be done with this remote learning. I think it's amazing. It's just another way to see what that kid is learning and what they're thinking. This is also a great way for kids to document the learning process, but also document their emotions. So social emotional learning is a big thing, right? Like everybody's talking about it. And sometimes it's like, well, it's difficult. Like, what do we have to do? Like, is there a social emotional curriculum, and I'm sure there are, but just even the fact of, or the act of journaling and just getting out what's going on in the day, whether it's learning or feelings or, ideas that are popping into the head of the students. I think this is awesome. And I just love the fact that you went into the books and added that feedback in there as well, because it makes the kids know that you care and that you're reading their materials and that you understand what they're going through. And so I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, and the Bitmojis totally work as well. If anybody's a real Bitmoji fan, the kids get such giggles out of when they would see my Bitmoji kind of pop on up. But again, it was immediate feedback. I was able to not only give them feedback, but I myself can leave recordings. So you as the teacher have complete control of the book as well. If a student puts things in there that are silly, maybe not the most appropriate, you can delete it, have a conversation about digital citizenship. But again, you can leave the voice recordings too. So I would do that as well to provide feedback that was vocal for my kids that weren't established readers yet, but they're definitely progressing.
Yeah, awesome. I'm going to ask you another question about this remote learning journal, but I want to answer a question that came in real quick on YouTube. The 40 book version, or I'm sorry, the free version, teacher gets 40 books, but the question is, how many books do students get? And the answer is a little bit tricky on this one. The student accounts are not traditional student accounts. You can't go on as a student, create an account, and just start making books. You have to join a teacher's library. So those 40 free books that you get, every book that a kid makes counts towards those 40 free books that you get in that free version. So just keep that in mind. There are no student accounts in the traditional sense. They create an account, but they join your library. That's how they have to make books. And on our support page, support.bookcreator.com, tons of articles that will definitely help you in terms of that. Now, let's see. Oh yes, Odalis. Yep, going to have his students. Is there a student? Sorry, Odalis is going to have students creating books in a diary using Book Creator. Awesome. That's a great idea. I love it. So then my follow-up question here, Britni, to you is, what were the results of this? So you see this journal here, but I'm assuming, and maybe I'm assuming incorrectly, but as you went from day 1 to day 17 to day 7 months, right, or wherever we're at in this whole process, what kind of improvements did you see? I can see just by looking at it, a lot more writing than there was on day 1. But what are some of the things that you've noticed about your students as they did this journaling?
I would definitely say they kept asking, even now, is today Book Creator Day? It's like, oh my goodness. So it's just something that's fresh and new for them and exciting. But as we went along with remote learning, and even now, is their writing, as you can see, their quotes are improving, their sentence structures are improving as we go along. They're doing less pictures and trying, to type, which is great writing skills too, wanting to verbalize and wanting to explain verbally. So the confidence has definitely just been built going through. That's what I saw with my 4th graders, 10 years old, to the 2nd graders, 7, 8 years old. So the same goal is there across from 2nd to 4th grade. And I'm sure the same if you went to the junior high, high school level as well. And their creativity, I mean, as you saw a book earlier, it doesn't matter, for me at least, my personal opinion is what's realistic. You have kids that are very creative, and this kiddo just went crazy, loves it, right? But then you have other students that are just getting used to the whole concept of speaking, listening, reading, writing. So their books can look a little bit more simple, but if we go off of a rubric that we created together or that I create, then at least I know that their academic language and what they're needing to learn is there and I can see it, then I'm good with that. But it's just a nice outlet for them to express themselves however they wish and see that. So some of the books, aren't as extravagant as his, but that's because that's just not within them, which is fine. But it gives those kids too, just like, ooh, another whole dimension here.
It's kind of like the real world, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I may not be as extravagant as my neighbor or vice versa, so it's mimics the real world experience. And I think that's really amazing. Anne Marie has a good question here. What are the total number of pages that you can put in a book? Didn't know if there was a limit. And so the short answer is there is not a limit. The longer answer is I think it's like 6,000 pages. But I've never seen a book about 800 pages. I think was the longest book I've ever seen. So I think you're going to be pretty good, Anne Marie. There aren't too many issues with size, right? Your kids are going to be okay making books inside of Book Creator. And then Margaret asked if we could show how, or asked, how do you insert a speech bubble? And so speech bubble is actually pretty easy. Everything that you need to know inside of Book Creator is, and I don't know, Britni, if you have if you have one open, and if you can just pull it up for me, I'll show you I'll tell everybody how to do that there. But if you go into your Book Creator account and go into a book, you're just going to click the plus button, and everything that you need to understand about Book Creator is in the plus button, and that's it. And once you click the plus button, there is a section under the comics where you can add the speech bubbles. So if you go into a book, like I said, all of the important things are up under that plus button. So if you click the plus button, under the middle there where it says comics, just click speech bubble, adds it to your page. And then all you do is double click inside there and you're able to add whatever text you want to put in there. And I did like what Britni's students did. They actually then click the speech bubble, click the inspector, and then they change the color of the speech bubble, because that's something that a lot of people don't pick up on. You can change the border, you can change the actual color of the speech bubble, change the page backgrounds. There's so many options there for doing that. And again, those are things that kids will find on their own. I always laugh because we do a webinar called The Book Creator You Never Knew. And it's like hidden tips and tricks inside a Book Creator and just random things that people don't know exist. And I kind of joke, but it's not really a joke, where probably half of the stuff that I show in those webinars is stuff that I learned from like second graders, because they figured it out. And I work for Book Creator and they figured out like these random things. So anyway, Britni, I just want to say thank you so much. As we wrap our session up here today, are there any, what's next? Like, what's the next thought? What are the next books that your students are going to be making?
Yeah, so we started with a family math scavenger hunt. So I really wanted to engage the families more in a way that they can be engaged and learn their math skills at home and within their home as well. So we just started a family math scavenger hunt. I sent home this rubric, which I'll provide for everybody in the chat as well, for anybody that's interested. And so right now, you can do whatever you want with this rubric. Obviously, you might not be learning standard form, so you can take that out. You'll have editing rights as well. But I sent this home to my families, and I was able to put in Google Translator in Vietnamese, Polish, Lithuanian, and Spanish, and English. And what I would do is I put the Book Creator code at the top so they can access the book at home. And then I would have the due date of what you need to find. They would go around with their Chromebooks or on a phone to take images, pictures of things that they found in standard form, word form, number pattern. I put what to look for and examples as well. And this reinforced our math skills that I was teaching. You could do this for science, social studies, reading, really anything, truthfully. And my students really just loved showing off at home. I mean, just to take it. And this was not a grade. This isn't a grade. It's not extra credit. It's just something for them that they can do with their families. And they jumped on it. They're definitely excited. And I got some great pieces of family math scavenger hunt. So each time the next one will be on the measurement unit from the first book that I was showing you of the student. So I really like doing the math family scavenger hunt after we completed the unit, so they can stay fresh with that material at home. And then we're moving on to the next content and the next skills. So that is what's next. Yes, we are engaging the families and doing this together. So I'm very excited to see what they come up with.
That's amazing. And I'm going to steal that answer or steal that idea too. So when I have teachers and I'm talking about how to use Book Creator, I love the idea of the scavenger hunt. I think that's fantastic. Britni, thank you so much. Do you have any shout outs that you want to give? Any people that inspire you or anything like that you just want to give a big plug to right here now?
My mom. Hi, Mom.
All right. Who's on here probably, right? We thought
she was the Janice, but her name's Janice.
So, sorry about that. My name's John Smith, right? You can't mess up John Smith. So
my mom, she makes me motivated every day. I mean, Mom made me want to become into this profession. So definitely a big shout out to Mom. I wouldn't be here learning, talking with you for my passion if it wasn't for her and instilling it in me. So thanks, Mom.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Mom. That's awesome. And then one final question, and this is something that everybody can think about, but this is the question that I did not give you ahead of time. So this is put you on the spot. So it always sounds weird coming out of my mouth, but for a long time, like the last couple of years, I've been fascinated with death, and only in the sense of what do I need to get rid of to make room for all of the new stuff? So there are people out here who are probably very new to Book Creator and they're excited about trying it, but the reality of the situation is we have all of this other stuff that we are either responsible for or things that we've done for our entire teaching careers, and we just don't have room to try something new. So what is that one thing in your classroom that just needs to die so that you can make room for something new?
I don't think you have to make room for Book Creator. I really don't. I think in the life of a teacher, an administrator, or anybody in the school community, you're given what you're given and you're thrown into it. And die or not, you come alive. So I really believe that it provides student choices. If anything that I wish would die is limiting kids. Book Creator provides options, endless options for IEP students, 504 students, EL students. I mean, you name it, they have it. And it's just diving in fearlessly and believing in your students. And they really truthfully can do it. I would just provide them with a guideline, like a structure. I did not do that when I very first started out. So what I would say, what could die? Don't be scared. And I know these are scary times. Just try it. This year, if anything, is the time to try. Go for it. I mean, everybody's trying new things. It can't hurt. Can't hurt anymore. So
Absolutely. I absolutely love the answer. Thank you so much, Britni. Thank you everybody for attending tonight. I really appreciate it. This video recording will be alive on YouTube in the next day or so. And so I just want to say, check that out. Be, excited about this. And like Britni said, try something new because this is the time, right? As a tech integrator, I did not have pandemic on my bingo card as the thing that would move teachers forward with using technology. So take advantage of it, get out there and try some new things. And most importantly, have fun, happy bookmaking, and be safe. And Britni, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I'll stick around for a couple minutes here if there's any wrap up questions. But other than that, thank you so much, everybody. And thank you to those of you that were watching on YouTube. I saw quite a few over there on YouTube. Britni, if you could make me the host again, I will make sure that I can get all of that wrapped up. But again, thanks everybody for being here and have a great night.
Thank you so much.
All right.
So how do I make you the host?
So if you go to panelist, where it says panelist, or I'm not panelist, participant, click on the participant button.
Alrighty.
And then over where it says panelist, if you hover over my name, there's a drop down that says more. Just click that and say make host.
Got it. Yay.